Hello, everyone. Germany is a beautiful country located in the heart of Europe. It has a beautiful, ancient, and peaceful beauty with a long-standing culture. This country is also a country with a leading economic development on the planet, especially in industry. The country's mechanical products are very famous. Every man wants to own at least one German car, and every man wants to enjoy German beer. German products are good, German people are good. Perhaps many of us already understand. According to this standard introduction, Germans should be big spenders. But did you know that Germans are very frugal? Why are Germans super frugal? In fact, there was a small exhibition opened at the German History Museum in Berlin about this country's passion for saving money. The exhibition, Thrift, History, German Virtue, features objects, paintings, posters, and documents that help explain the historical roots of Germany's prudent financial attitudes from the late Enlightenment to the Eurozone crisis. However, it is easy to see that Germans tend to be thrifty and that this habit did not come naturally. Many studies have shown that for more than 200 years, the media of banks and governments have constantly emphasized the importance of saving money for the future, laying the foundation for a deeply ingrained habit in national psychology, the psychology of Germans, that is to save. The content of the media is very diverse, from positive to creating concerns for people. In the end, they all have the same message, encouraging people to save for when needed, to save, to buy bonds to help the country during the war, to buy bonds to help rebuild the country after the two world wars. This idea originated in the Great Enlightenment period in the 18th century in Europe. A responsible, moral person should spend money to take care of himself, to take care of his family. And this idea gradually sowed into the national consciousness during that period. Banks started coming into schools, teaching kids to save early and making saving fun for kids. And the German government was quick to step in and make sure the messages from the banks were getting out right, so that their people would save more. They could prevent poverty, they could ensure social control, they could have the credit needs of the post-war period. And the first savings bank opened in Hamburg in the late 18th century, inspired by the Enlightenment idea of social progress. It was originally seen as a tool to improve the plight of urban poor. By the mid-19th century, there were more than 300 such banks operating across the German Confederation, allowing citizens to save their hard-earned money in exchange for a little interest. By saving a small portion of their income, they could pay for their children's education and lessen the financial burden of old age or illness. This motivation was soon replaced by a completely different reason. In the second half of the 19th century, thrift became a national ideal. That's when you see the rise of the savings movement, which called for schools to teach children how to save money and introduce special school savings banks. It's also a time when savings accounts are booming across Germany. And at this point, saving is no longer a tool to fight poverty. It began to be seen as a service to their great German nation. The concept of personal savings as a service to the nation became clearer during the First World War, when mass propaganda encouraged the German people to invest their savings in war bonds. Heeding the government's call, millions of Germans saw their savings devalued and eventually wiped out by hyperinflation in 1923. Then, when Hitler came to power, he told the German people that saving was a patriotic duty that could help fight Jewish capital. At that time, saving money was considered hardworking. The person who saves money is considered to be moral. The person who saves money is considered to be following the right path of the country. On the other side are the stock market people, the speculators, and the gamblers. Savings then skyrocketed and were used to finance the war effort. After World War II, bank communications began to change to reflect changing lifestyles. From the 1970s onwards, advertising no longer portrayed saving as a moral obligation, but as a habit that allowed people to buy things or take holidays they wanted. But it must also be said that the defeat in World War II caused the German savings to disappear, just like that. It was completely wiped out by inflation and then the monetary reform policy of the Deutsche Mark. And just like before, this bad result did not stop the Germans from saving again. On the contrary, in the 50s and 60s of the 20th century, the country's savings actually increased 10 times compared to the previous period. This shows that for Germans, saving is not only an economic strategy, but it has become a habit. Saving is ingrained and in the blood. That remains true today. Germans save as much as they can. They continue to worry about whether their savings will be negatively affected by inflation, low interest rates, and the plans of central banks and politicians in Europe. They continue to trust the stock market and banks. This tradition has helped German citizens become the world's biggest savers. Households have consistently saved more than 8% of their income for over 20 years. German savings banks continue to control around 37% of all deposits. Even low interest rates have not shaken the German people's commitment to saving up to this point. Despite hyperinflation, the global economic crisis, and record low interest rates, Germans have continued to save for a very long time and show little sign of slowing down. And they're very rarely surprised by changes, political, economic, because they have capital, they have savings. Germans save no matter what. Saving seems to be like a cult of something excessive. For many, having money in their pockets is seen as a goal to be achieved at all costs. The German tradition of thrift extends beyond households, families, and companies to state finances. This influences not only domestic policy, but also most European policies. Following the European debt crisis, austerity policies were introduced in southern countries, particularly Greece, emphasizing the need to cut spending and increase savings. Unsurprisingly, Germany was one of the leading advocates of these fiscal policies. For Germans, austerity was a necessary solution for a country that had recklessly spent beyond its means until 2008. Next, because most Germans rent and do not buy. In fact, many Germans do not want to buy a house. The home ownership rate is among the lowest in the world, only about 43%. That is a very low number in the developed world and almost the lowest in Europe. Although Switzerland is also a country with an even lower rate of home ownership, Germany's rental-oriented real estate market was partly due to the uncomfortable political and economic situation in the mid-20th century. First, due to the war, when Germany surrendered unconditionally, and by the mid-20th century, 20% of German housing stock was in ruins. About 2.25 million homes were destroyed, and another 2 million were damaged. Not only real estate, but the German economy was also in ruins. The country's finances were virtually zero, and the currency was worthless. If Germans needed a place to live, the government was the only solution to help build them. Then, shortly after the founding of West Germany, the government pushed through the first housing law. The law was designed to stimulate the construction of homes that were the right size, value, and rent, aimed at and affordable for the entire population. This led to a boom in housing construction. Most of the houses used for living were rented houses because the German market was also weak at that time, and not many people could afford to buy a house. Another reason why renting in Germany seemed to be better than buying was because many regulations favored renters. For example, German law stipulates that the federal government cannot increase rents by more than 15% every 3 years. In addition, the government does not encourage home ownership. And finally, why do Germans work fewer hours but are more productive? Germans work an average of 35 hours a week, take 24 days off a year, and the government once considered banning work emails after 6 p.m. The country and its people have a pretty interesting work culture. Germans enjoy good labor protection and shorter working hours than most of their counterparts. How does a country with an average work week of only 35 hours and 24 days off, paid annually, maintain such high productivity? Well, here is the answer. Work hours are just for work. Work is not for chatting. Work is not for surfing Facebook, watching YouTube, etc. In German business culture, when an employee is sitting at the office, they should not do anything other than work. Checking Facebook, chatting with colleagues, surfing the web, or pretending to look at a spreadsheet when the boss walks by are all unacceptable actions, both from colleagues and from a boss. Second, it is about communicating directly and on topic. German business culture is characterized by a highly focused and direct way of communicating. While Americans tend to value small talk and maintaining a cheerful atmosphere, Germans rarely beat around the bush. German workers will directly talk to their managers about performance reviews, They are willing to attend a meeting, talk frankly without worrying about other factors. It is a very civilized country, civilized in behavior, civilized in work. And finally, break time is just for resting. I'm off. Don't ask me to do anything anymore. Germans can be said to work hard and play hard because they have very clear rules about work hours and play hours. Because work hours are just for work, and play hours are, of course, just for play. Germans generally value the separation of private life and work life. And that is the story of why Germans are so frugal, why Germans work less and are highly efficient. And you have been following this story with interest. And now it's time to say goodbye.